Good evening. So in this video, I will read paragraphs from the essay Coming Home Again by Changri Lee from the course 561 Creative Non-Fiction Voices from the Margin, MA English second semester at Tribhuvan University, Kathmandu, Nepal. I have made a series of other videos on this essay. In the first video, I read from paragraph 1 to 6 and explained. In the second video, I read from paragraph 7 to 20 and I explained. In the third video, I read from paragraph 21 to 53 and explained. Now in this fourth video, I will read from paragraph 54 onwards and comment. I'll try to read these paragraphs rhetorically. Let's begin. After the meal, my father and I talked about school, but I could never say enough for it to make any sense. Now remember that in the previous paragraphs we read that how after few weeks he joined the extra school, his parents visited him for the first time, and how his mother took a lot of Korean dishes for him. And now he writes, after the meal, my father and I talked. So he's using past tense. That means this paragraph is a flashback. They talked about the school, but I could never say enough for it to make any sense. My father would often recall his high school principal, who had gone to England to study the methods and traditions of the public schools and regaled students with stories of the great Eton man. Pay attention to the language, the structure with conditional would. My father would often. We use this conditional structure would or could when we talk about a discontinued habit from the past, or when we talk about something we frequently did in the past, but we do it no more, then we use this structure of would or could. My mother sat with us, paring fruit, not saying a word, but taking everything in. When it was time to go to bed, my father said, good night first. I usually watched television until the early morning. My mother would sit with me for an hour or two, perhaps until she was accustomed to me again, and only then would kiss me and head upstairs to sleep. Another remarkable thing in this paragraph that you see is the portrayal of the intense bonding between the son and the mother. You can clearly see that the rhetor or the narrator was closer to the mother than to father. So in this paragraph, we see narrative mode. The rhetor is using past simple tense to narrate the memories about his parents, and he is in the flashback. Let's go to paragraph 55. During the following days, it was always the cooking that started our conversations. I have told time and again to you that there is something called the framing technique or framing device. And I said that cooking is the activity in this essay that connects the whole essay together. Food is the item in this essay that connects the whole essay together. And kitchen is the location or space in this essay that brings the whole strands of the narration together. So it was always the cooking that started our conversation. So whenever he met his parents, they would talk about uh, cooking. She would hold an inquest over the cold leftovers we ate at lunch. Though the mother could cook no more, but she was very carefully observing everything. She would hold an inquest over the cold leftovers we ate as lunch, discussing each dish in terms of its balance of flavors or what might have been prepared differently. Say, the title of our course is Voices from the Margin. And if you ask a question, in what way does this essay raise the voice of the people from the margin? One answer can be the narrator in this memoir. The mother, the son, the father, the sister, all are Korean immigrants living in America. The father is a doctor. The sister has also got a job. The son is a teacher. The mother is a housewife. So, do you see how they assert their identity? Do you see how they assert there is space in America? They assert their identity through their food. Majority of the text in this essay talks about Korean food, though somewhere we also read about the American food that Mrs. Churchill taught his mother to make, but mostly it's the Korean food that the writer talks about. So it is through food that the immigrant's identity is asserted in this essay. It is through food that the voices of the people of the margin, immigrant people, has been raised in this essay. Let's read. But mostly I begged her to leave the dishes alone. I wish I had paid more attention. Why? Why he says, I wish I had paid more attention. You use such structure when you regret about for not doing something. Maybe the mother had died, the mother has died, and now he says, had I known that she would die so soon, I would have paid more attention to her. And what she was saying, let me read. She would hold an inquest over the cold leftovers we ate at lunch, discussing each dish in terms of its balance of flavors or which might have been prepared or what might have been prepared differently. But mostly I begged her to leave the dishes alone. I wish I had paid more attention to her instruction about cooking. After her death, now look, he clearly mentions after her death, when my father and I were the only ones left in the house. This sentence, this line is very important in paragraph 55 because this sentence or this line gives a very clear indication about the point of time in this narration. Now we are very clear that when Changri Li wrote this essay, his mother had already died. So this essay was written after the mother's death. I wish I had paid more attention after her death. If his mother had not died, how can you write it like after death? Look, in the previous paragraphs up to 53, you cannot have clear idea whether when this essay was actually written. Now here we clearly know that this essay was written when the mother had already died and he came home. So coming home again means coming home again, but not having mother again. Coming home again to a home where you don't have a mother. See the difference. The previous times when he came home, the mom was there to welcome him with the dishes. This time, the mother was not there. After her death, when my father and I were the only ones left in the house, drifting through the rooms like ghosts. Look, When the mother is no more, how is the house? House is empty, and he feels like he is a ghost moving from room to room because every room is empty. Now look the emotional appeal. Drifting through the rooms like ghosts, I sometimes try to make that meal for him. That meal, the meal that mother taught him to make the last time. He made it for father. I sometimes tried to make that meal for him, though it was too much for two of us, father and now look, this very emotional scene for two. That means now in the house only two people were there, the father and the son. I don't know where the daughter had gone. Though it was too much for two, I made each dish anyway, taking as much care as I could. It is the dish, it is the cooking, it is the food that connects the mother and son. I made each dish anyway, taking as much care as I could, but nothing turned out quite right. Why? Because the mother was not there to instruct him to make it correctly. Or maybe because mom had died and he felt painful. Not the color, not the smell. Without mother standing by my side and telling me how to make, I could not bring the true color to the food. I could not bring true smell to the food. At the table, neither of us, father and son, said much of anything, and we had to eat the food for days. We had to, not we ate. We had to eat the food for days. So paragraph 55 is important because it is this paragraph where we clearly come to learn that when Shangri Li wrote this essay, his mother had already died and there were only two people, the father and son in the house, and I wonder what had happened to the sister. Let's move to paragraph 56. I remember washing rice in the kitchen. I remember, flashback. I remember washing rice in the kitchen one day and my mother's saying in English from her usual seat, I made a big mistake. It's interesting that the mother spoke English because previously we read how the mother could not speak English and she spoke Korean, and how the son did not want to speak Korean and he spoke English, and how the two languages, English and Korean, this difference created a problem in the relation between the son and the mother. I remember washing rice in the kitchen one day and my mother saying in English from her usual seat, I made a big mistake. As a reader, we become alert. What is that mistake? About Exeter? The son says, oh, you think you made a mistake by sending me to school? Yes, mother says, I made a big mistake. Remarkable thing is that Shangri-Li remembers the whole dialogue he had with the mother. This is interesting. How can the writer remember each word the mother said the dialogue and render it correctly? Yes, I made a big mistake. You should be with us for that time. I should never let you go there. Now he remembers the mother saying, yes, I made a big mistake by sending you to school at 15 to the city. You should have been with us for that 10 years. I should never let you go there. One thing, let me remind you, I didn't tell in the previous videos. Now I remember. This is a narrative. And when you read a narrative, there are certain things that you should pay attention to. I'm writing on my whiteboard at my back. I don't know if the letters appear correctly. In a narrative, there is background to the story, right? Something we call exposition, right? So a story starts in a normal way, right? And then you will see there is conflict. Something happens, someone does, that creates a problem, that brings a tension. And this conflict becomes complicated. Things become more difficult. Then this complication leads to crisis. And this is how the narrative develops about plot. Another thing, when you read a narrative, you should pay attention to characters in the story. Who are the people? We have the son, we have the mother, we have the father, and we have the daughter. Right? Let me erase and then write again. Maybe it's out of focus. I have a piece of cotton cloth. It works better than duster. Okay. Then you should also pay attention to dialogue in a narrative as we're reading dialogues. You should also pay attention to action and plot. I said pay attention to conflict, pay attention to complication, pay attention to crisis, to characters, to dialogue, etc. I had forgotten to tell this thing in my previous recordings. Okay, let me read. Yes, I made a big mistake. You should be with us for that time. I should never let you go there. As I read this essay, I always remember Richard Rodriguez' text, Achievement of Desire. He read last year in first semester in academic writing reading package. Para 59. So why did you send me then? If you regret, mother says, because I did not know I was going to die. God, how emotional. Mother says, had I known I was going to die, I wouldn't have sent you to school. This is the most intense emotional point in the whole narrative for me. Because I sent you to school because I didn't know I will die. So the mother felt like she hasn't lived enough with the son. 61. I let her words pass. See, again it comes to the present. So do you see this fluctuation back and forth mode between past and present? I let her words pass. For the first time in her life, she was letting herself speak her full mind. So what else could I do? When people say when someone is about to die, they speak their heart. But you know what? She spoke up. It was better for you to go to school. If you had stayed home, you would not like me so much now. I don't understand this line. Why? I don't know why she says so. I suggested that maybe I would like her even more. Now he's reporting. Sometimes he presents the dialogue directly, sometimes he reports. See the technique. Sometimes the narrator presents the dialogue directly as direct speech. Sometimes he presents as indirect speech. I suggested that maybe I would like her even more. She shook her head. Impossible. 65. Sometimes I still think about what she said, about having made a mistake to send to school. I would have left home for college. That was never in doubt. But those years I was away at boarding school grew more precious to her as her illness progressed. She sent her child to school, and when the son was away from her, she developed the cancer. And as she became sick day by day, she missed her son more and more. After many months of exhaustion and pain and the haze of the cancer drugs, I thought that her mind was beginning to fade. For more and more, it seemed that she was seeing me again as her 15-year-old boy. See the mother's love. He was maybe 25, 30, 35. He had come back from college, but she thought as if he was still her 15-year-old boy, son. The one she had dropped off in New Hampshire on a cloudy September afternoon in school. Paragraph 66. I remember the first person I met at school, another new student named Jack, who walked to the welcome picnic with me. Now he's remembering his school, the first time he went to school. I had planned to eat with my parents. My mother had brought a colorful of food, my mother had brought a cooler full of food even that first day. But I learned of the cookout and told her that I should probably go. I wanted to go, of course. I was excited and no doubt fearful and nervous, and I must have thought I was only thinking ahead. She agreed wholeheartedly, saying I certainly should. I walked them to the car. He bid them goodbye. I walked them to the car, and perhaps I hugged my parents before saying goodbye. One day after she died, oh God, how emotional line. One day after she died, my father told me what had happened on the long drive home to Syracuse when I left my parents. 67. He was driving the car. Now look, flashback. The father told the son what had happened when the parents left school to come back home. Now the son is telling us, I don't know what has happened to the father. I wonder if he still has his father. He was driving the car, looking straight ahead. Traffic was light on the Massachusetts Turnpike, and the sky was nearly dark. They had driven for more than 2 hours and had not yet spoken a word. Surprising. Husband and wife were driving in the car. Nobody else was there for 2 hours. They didn't speak. He then heard a strange sound from her, a kind of muffled chewing noise, as if something inside her were grinding its way out. It happened with her because she had cancer in the stomach, and maybe the cancer had grown till the food pipe. So sometimes she had this difficulty. Next paragraph. So, what's the matter? He said to her in the car, trying to keep an edge to his voice. She looked at him with her look. This conversation between father and mother was reported to the son, and the son is reporting to readers to us. She looked at him with her ashen face, maybe pale face, and she burst into tears, emotional scene. Why she burst into tears? Because she was returning back, leaving her son at school. He began to cry himself in the car. Look, the essay began emotionally in paragraph 1 with the machine. The essay ends emotionally in last paragraph. She looked at him with her ashen face and she burst into tears. He began to cry himself and pulled the car over into the narrow shoulder of the turnpike, where they stayed for the next half hour or so, the blank-faced cars droning by them in the cold, onrushing night. Oh, they were coming back home at night. Last paragraph. Even once in a while, when I think of her, now again present. The previous 69 paragraph was flashback, past, now present. Even once in a while, when I think of her, I'm driving alone somewhere on the highway. In the twilight, I see their car off to the side. How emotional. When he drives on the highway, he imagines his parents driving. I see their car in imagination. Off to the side, a blue Oldschool with a Landau top, a description of the car. And as I pass them by in my imagination, I look back in the mirror in front of the driver's seat, and I see them again at my back in my imagination. The two figures, mom and dad, huddling together in the front seat. Are they sleeping or kissing? Are they all right? How emotionally the essay ends. So do you see, the essay begins quite emotionally and ends with intense emotion. A memoir where a son remembers his experiences of a lifetime with his mother. And now we know that he wrote this memoir after his mother had died. The narrative framework, by narrative framework, I mean the temporal framework, time, past, and present, is very remarkable and very difficult to find out. Let's go to the questions here. Changri Lee begins his essay in media res, in the middle of the activities. When the essay opens, you can see the mother is dragging the machine, pump, from the kitchen to the bathroom, probably. How does his choice create drama, sympathy, and significance for the personal experience that he narrates? I don't want to answer this question because I want you to answer this question your way. So there's drama. It opens with action. As the memoir opens, we see the mom walking on the stage from the kitchen to the bathroom. She stops to catch her breath, and the son feels anxious because he thinks something may be wrong with her. So the memoir opens with drama, and it creates sympathy because in the very opening line, we know that she can't eat and she can't swallow the medicine. And significance for the personal experience that he narrates. So the writer narrates his personal experience as a son, his experience as a son with the mother. Now you answer the question and show me. I'll read your answers. Then maybe I'll say something. Second question. Because Lee begins his account at a late stage of his mother's illness, when the memoir opens, the mom is sick for a long time. How does his choice create drama? He often flashes back to earlier points in their relationship. Mark the flashbacks in the text and explain the purpose of each flashback. Now your job is go back to the essay, and if any paragraph describes a moment from the past, in the margin write flashback, and then try to comment why this flashback is important, why this remembering is important. Mark the flashbacks in the text and explain the purpose. Okay, this is a difficult question. Number 3, details of food and cooking appear throughout the essay. For example, in paragraph 8, 9, 11, 13, 32, 34, besides giving us a flavor of Korean food, what function do these details serve? One answer can be the details about food. To me, I'll say function 2 things. One, they assert the identity, immigrant identity, the Korean identity, the identity of the people from the margin. Second, I'll say the description of the food functions as a framing device that connects other stories together, because the major line of the story is about food description, and other memories, other experiences are tied together with that. It is the food made by the mother that links all other descriptions. Write a personal essay about coming home or going home. Do this exercise. Remember when you went home last time, whom you met at home, and describe your experiences, what you did. Okay, here are questions for rhetorical analysis. Maybe I made these questions. Maybe it's not in your book. Who is trying to convince whom or what and in what circumstances? Okay. When you attempt a rhetorical analysis, you ask a question. Who is speaking in this memoir? A son. Who is the rhetor? A son. To whom is he speaking? Difficult question. Let's ask, if a son tells the story about his mother, I'll say he is speaking to all other sons around the world. So as I read this narration about his mother, I recall my mother. And as I read this story, I bring the memories of my mother. And I associate my mother with this mother. And I compare my mother with this mother and I contrast. So I'll say, in a sense, this son is telling his story to all the sons. In what circumstances? So you see, he came home after 10 years. The family was not together for 10 years, right? But when he came home, that's so difficult. In the previous paragraph, you read that when he came home, the mom was there. But later we read that in paragraph 54, we read that when he wrote this memoir, mom was dead. So I'm not able to clearly tell you the time frame. You decide, okay? And tell me. Second question. Let's see the second question. What choices does writer make to sell his ideas? Okay. To persuade, he uses narration, narrative mode. He uses emotional appeal. He uses flashback technique. He uses the genre of memoir. He uses drama to say what he wants to say. How does the writer persuade his reader? By making a reasoned, strategic thinking on paper in a bid to channel events or action in a fair, advantageous direction. So I'll say that in this essay, we don't have logical appeal. We have more pathos or emotional appeal. To some extent, we can say we have ethical appeal because as we read and we have the character of the son, we may like this son for his sincerity towards his mother. And that may make us believe what he's telling about his mother. What means or tools and strategies of persuasion does the writer apply? I told you. He uses narrative technique, memoir. He tells a story. He presents it as a drama with dialogue. He uses various images, visual images, auditory images, even figures of speech like metaphor and simile. He uses flashback technique. What else? How does the writer persuade his readers to understand and accept his arguments? I won't answer this question, you think. How does the writer arrange his words? How does the writer choices influence his argument? These are the questions that can help you to attempt a rhetorical analysis. Okay. Now, let me, just a second, let me get a book. I want to talk something more. Okay, before I close the video, let me open this book, Rhetorical Analysis, and try to connect something to this narrative. Okay. So what is rhetoric? Rhetoric is persuasion, So let's ask a question. What argument might this writer be making? And please understand what we mean by argument. By argument, we mean a viewpoint. Now, the topic of this narrative is home, family, mother. Let's try to say, what is this narrator trying to say about home? One answer, maybe you may disagree with me. One answer may be, home is where the whole family is together. Home is where you have your mother. If you don't have your mom, it's no more a home. Father does not make home. Sister does not make home. A son does not make home alone. Without a mom, home is no home. You may disagree. If you disagree, give your opinion. So, what is it? What view about home is this writer expressing? Because this memoir was published in the New Yorker, October 6, 1995. And the theme of that weekly issue was home. There were other memoirs, other essays in that issue on home. We'll check in a while. And my question is, what is Shangri-Li or this writer, this son, trying to say about home? So I will say, home is where all people come together. Home is where you get food. Home is where you get your mother's love. Home is where father comes early. Home is where sister quits her job to be with the mom. Home is where a son comes home to take care of the mother. Home is where people get sick. Home is where you show love to your mother by writing an essay. Home is not just a building, a structure. Home is the connection, the relationship, the emotional bond among the people living in it. Okay. Then, let me talk about Kairos in this essay. I'll take you to the beginning of the essay. Wait a minute. When you talk about Kairos, you need to get out of the text. And you need to explore the time when the text was written and the place where the text was written and the social, political, historical events that took place when the text was written. So you need to Google and just ask what happened in New York in 1995. Let's try. Let's try. Maybe we can find something. Let's Bing. Let me Bing and show you. So here I put a question. Can you briefly tell me the major events that took place in New York City in the month of September and October 1995? Look, I put this question to Microsoft as Bing AI. Can you briefly tell me the major events that took place in New York City in the month of September and October 1995? Because I want to know if there was something that triggered the writing of this essay. Let me see. Let me share this page. Yes, maybe you can see this page because I'm sharing the screen. Okay. It says, I will try to find that for you, and it didn't find. Oh God. What I was doing, I was trying to know uh, the circumstances in which this memoir was written. I don't think it says generating answer for you, and it okay. Uh, Let me save. You can't tell me? I'm putting a question. It's like a chat. Oh, I apologize. Let me rephrase the question. What important events took place in the New York City in 1995? And let me see what it says. Okay, there are some events. One is, okay, let's read. I'm trying to find out if there were events that have some connection with the idea of home. Dirty 30. A group of New York City police officers were accused of corruption and misconduct. Leave that. Freddy's Fashion Mart attack. Racially motivated arson attack on clothing store. Holiday Hell. A fire broke out at a Bronx social club. Murder of Eliza Izquierdo. A tragic case of child abuse. Let me rephrase the question. Could you tell me what happened in the month of October 1995? Okay, so we read that in the month of October 1995, when this memoir was published in the New Yorker, Breeders' Cup, a prestigious horse racing event, was held at Belmont Park. Then return engagement of the full moon. Bill Irwin and David Shinner's full moon returned to the Ambassador Theatre for a run of 81 performances. Price increase for Sunday New York News. Okay, not so helpful. It's difficult. In rhetorical analysis, analyzing Kairos is quite challenging. You can look at Kairos in two ways. One, what events took place outside the text at the time and at the place where this text was written. So what happened in New York in July, August, September, October? Did something happen in New York in October which triggered the editors of this New Yorker magazine to invite writers to write writings on home? I don't know. Second, Kairos is also created by the writer inside the text. For example, now ask a question. What are the events and circumstances that took place or are taking place in the plot of the narrative? Now it's easier because we know that there is a family in New York City, an immigrant's family, where the father is a psychiatrist doctor. The son has completed college and she is in another city having a job. Sorry, the daughter. The son is also a scholar. He teaches writing somewhere. The mother is at home and she's sick. And if you see broader sense, there is an immigrant family who is struggling in a new country, new place, new culture. She has a language problem. You remember how when Mr. Churchill explains the mother to make the dish, she has language problem. How the father had to work double to get the same salary as his white counterpart. So the broader social, cultural, political milieu or situation is one where immigrant people, Korean, Asian people are struggling to carve their identity in America. They're struggling to find a space for themselves in America, and where they have to struggle. And in this situation, the writer comes up with his writing about his mother and the food. And in some sense, this writing helps this writer, the writer, to assert his identity. This is what I could say about Kairos. Let me move ahead uh, and talk about uh, textualized rhetorical situation. And I want to apply this idea. Here it goes. Uh, you can see I'm talking about this thing, textualized rhetorical situation. Uh, you have actual writer. So ask a question. Who is the actual writer? Changri Lee is the actual writer. Implied writer. So I will say the implied writer that is created by the text is the son. Uh, Text, the memory we have, coming home again. Speaker, our son is the speaker. Speech, the memories and experiences with the mother and what she taught him, what he learned, and life experiences, the speech. Addressee, in the text I said maybe this speaker is speaking to all the sons around the world, or at least all the sons who happen to read the New Yorker magazine, or I'll say he is speaking to the readers of the New Yorker magazine. Let's put a query here. Who were the primary readers of the New Yorker magazine? And let's see what answer we get from Bing search. So we are answering the question, who is the addressee in this narrative? To whom is this son talking to? Let's read what we got. The New Yorker magazine was founded in 1925 by Harold Ross and his wife Jane Grant. The magazine was initially targeted towards a niche audience of affluent, educated readers who were likely to hold passports, drink alcohol, own binoculars, enjoy gardening, smoke cigarette, and if they lived outside of Manhattan, visit the city. However, over the years, the magazine has evolved and expanded its readership to include a wider range of people who are interested in its unique blend of journalism, commentary, criticism, fiction, satire, cartoons, and poetry. So I will say the addressee is all the sons as well as the readers of New Yorker magazine where this was published. Then we have implied audience, uh, audience intended by the text. I'll say the son. Then you have actual reader. Right now, I am the actual reader because I read this paragraph. You are the actual reader, right? Okay, what else? Do we check? Wait, before I close my recording. Okay, this is what I could say in this recording. I'll close it. I don't want to make it much longer. Maybe in the next recording, I will try to bring more ideas about rhetorical analysis. Uh, Please do leave your comments about how helpful these recordings are for you, because this will give an idea how I should go ahead in the future. If you have some idea about how I should make these recordings, tell me, and watch them before you come to class, because I'm doing this thing to make sure that you understand the text before you come to my class, so that you can participate in a lively discussion on the topic. Let me open the yes. One more thing I'll say before I close my video. It's important that you pay attention to the cover of the magazine where this memo was published. Do you see the New Yorker, October 1995, and you can see the home issue. The theme of this magazine was home, and you can see the face. I don't think the gentleman in the photo is white European male. He looks like a Korean by face or Asian by face, and you can see the wife is looks brown. So we don't see white European couple there. You see the child, right? Looks like people from the margin. And then if you see some other writings in that issue, one was No Place Like Home. From 1995, after 16 years, it came down to a Battle of Wills, Woman versus Apartment by Nancy Franklin. I haven't read the essay. Then The Life of a House, Homecoming, moving into the perfect house and sharing it with the memories of the family who lived there before. That's interesting to me. Moving into a house and sharing memory of the people who lived there. I want to go back to India and visit all the places where I lived in my childhood. Coming home again, the one we read, an important thing is that this in the magazine, when this essay was published, there was a photograph of the food. Then the eerie allure of the abandoned houses. When a house has been abandoned, Joyce Carol Oates writes, you can be sure there's a sad story. Oh God, this story appeals to me because I know many houses abandoned and that have memories related to me. So this is the background from this. This was the photograph that was published in the magazine with this memoir, right? Okay, I'm tired. As you watch, if you have any questions, you note down the questions and you can put those questions in class. Thank you for watching. In the next video, I'll try to bring more ideas. Thank you.